Hey guys, welcome in this new module. I hope you figured out the coffee machine assignment, and if not, don't worry, just ask your question in the classroom and maybe one of your colleagues can answer the question. If not, I will answer the question in the weekly video. Alright, so far we're going to work on file inputs and outputs in this module. So it's really important if you're testing, if you're measuring, that you're collecting data, but you need to save that data somewhere as well. And most of the time we save it in an Excel sheet, for example. But we also want to read from Excel sheets. So we want to not only write to Excel sheets, but we also want to gather information from existing Excel sheets. For example, to do comparison with previous tests or calibration or whatever. Alright, so we're going to start really easy and we're going a little bit deeper with every video in this module. Let me just start from the beginning, open up a blank VI, and I'll show you what's going on. Alright, so I created a test.txt file in my front panel of my PC. So I can actually, I'm gonna write and read from that file. I'm not sure if there's text in it right now. Oh, there's actually hi in it. Save it. Right. Alright, so the most basic part of file input and output, there's actually a file palette here in programming. Let me just pin this. The most basic setup of file inputs and outputs is we're opening a file, we're writing information to that file, or we're reading information from the file, and then we close the file. And those functions we have here in open file, close file, and write file. Alright, so let me just go through the steps. I'm gonna just place all three of them in my block diagram already. Alright, so what happens in the first box, the first function actually opens up a file. I need to select which file I need to open. I need to select what I need to do with it. Let me open the context help, by the way. Explains it a little bit easier. Alright, so we open up, with this block diagram, we open up a file. The first input that we're looking at is the file path, and in brackets it says use dialog. We can select, we can create a constant, we can create a control for this file path. So either in the front panel you manually type in the location of your file that you want to open. There's an easier way. By default it says use dialog, and that means that if I run the VI and there's nothing wired up to this input, then it will open up a dialog screen and I can just select my file in the dialog screen. So let me just delete this part. If I run my VI, there's nothing wired up to this function right now, but I want to open up a file. I can just run it and you can see it automatically opens up this dialog screen, and I can choose the path of my file. Right, oops. So if I run it, I can just select test.txt, click OK, and then it is opened in here. Alright. Once I open a file, I need to select the operation. By default, it is open a file, so we can actually read and write in it. There is you can, so it's an enum. I think it's an enum. Yeah, it is. And if the input is 0, then we're opening. We can replace the file, so we'll replace it with a new file. We can create a new file, open or create, replace or create with confirmation. So we have these options for operation. By default, it's just open up a file again. And then the access, if you want to do, for example, read only or write only, then you can select that, but most of the time you just use read and write at the same time. But the most important part is the ref num out. So the file is opened, and at the same time LabVIEW or this function actually creates a reference number for this file. That means you can have multiple files open at the same time, and you can write to different files at the same time. But this reference number that is used in the other function. So if you're writing something to a file, then you need to input the reference number into that function, into the new function. We'll see that in the next block that we're going to discuss, the next function. And this tells us, okay, so the file that you opened, it gets a corresponding reference number temporarily. And we're going to use that in the other functions. Right, so this is actually how this function works. Then we're going into the write text file. And so I can just leave this box like this. I want to open the file, I want to read and write, and the prompt, I don't mind about the prompt. And it creates a reference number for my file. And I can just wire that up to the next, to the input of the next function. So this is by default again. We can wire up the file. I can also, if I don't have this open function before my file, you can also opt to not use this open function in the beginning of your program, because you can see this input. Oops, if we're going to the help again, the first file input, we can use the reference number to put it in there. If it doesn't work, if we don't have a reference number or a file path, then again it will open up a dialog screen and we can just select the file again. Alright, the other input is the text, which is, it's a write function, so we're actually writing a string or text to this file that we open up in the first function. The format that we write in is a string. So you can see it's a pink input, so we know it's a string. Let's create a constant and say hello world. And so this string, hello world, is going to be, we're going to write that into this file that we just opened, and then afterwards we're going to close the file. So canceling is maybe if we did we cancel the operation? So if we run this program right now, we can actually run it. What if we select cancel? Oops, yeah, you can't see it like that. How can I close this? Oh, here it is. Hello, guys. Alright, so if I press cancel in my dialog screen, I have no idea why, but I can't show it to you right now, then I get a true signal here, which can be used for example, loops. If we're using loops and you want to break out of the loop and you're selecting cancel, okay. But for now, I'm going to open up my text file. Then I'm going to write hello world in the format of a string, and I'm going to close the file again. So if I run it right now, I'm going to open up the test, and I wrote hello world in the file, and then I close the file. Okay. And now I can go to my hello world file or my test text, and you can see I actually wrote hello world in here. Alright, and that's the easiest way of actually using this file inputs and outputs. Then I need to show you one more thing. We're having error inputs and outputs in all of these blocks. And we can connect these error and inputs as well. And what happens if an error occurs in the first program or in the first function, then we can directly break out. Right now, if I create a error in this first function, for example, I'm not selecting a file, so I run the file. and I press cancel, then you see this error screen pops up. Which is fine, and I can just continue or stop. Continue, I just go to the next file. It gives me another error because there's no file to write it in. And if I can stop the VI and I can continue to the next one. Okay, same error. Okay, if I connect these arrow wires, then it will automatically press continue actually. So it will continue, even though you can't write it to the correct file, it will still do your measurement, or you can do some other error handling in it. So these error tunnels or wires are used to actually, if an error occurs, that you can handle that error later into in the VI instead of actually do it in the beginning. For now, of course, if I don't wire these up, then it doesn't matter, because I know that if I made a mistake, if I have an error in my first block, I can stop it immediately because the rest won't work either. Alright, so for this first file input and output, alright, so and now we we're writing actually hello world into this file. Of course, we can also do the other way around where we're just reading out files. Let me just replace this with the read text file and create an indicator. And what I can do right now, if I run it, it has exactly the same inputs and outputs as well. And if I run it right now, it's going to read the text from my test file. So select this one, you can see hello world. And if by hand I'm adding hello world, it is a nice day today, and I'm saving that, and I read it out again. Oops, there it is. Oh, this one. Then you can see it reads out the entire file. Alright, so this is the easiest way to actually write and read from files. This is the most basic way. This is how it was meant to be in the beginning of LabVIEW. LabVIEW actually changed some of these functions. As you can see, if I'm not using this function, this open function, and I run my VI, then the next function will automatically pop up this dialog box, open the file, and close it again afterwards. So LabVIEW developed itself into using less functions where necessary, but from the beginning you need to know that first you open a file, then you write to a file, and then you close the file. Even though in LabVIEW it's not necessarily it's not necessary anymore to actually use the open function, because you can open the file like this. Alright, so far this introduction. See you in the next video.